All right, good evening. I call this meeting to order.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Thomas, roll call, please.
Mr. Payne,
Present.
Mr. Snook,
Here.
Ms. Walker,
Present.
Ms. McGill, present, Ms. Hill.
Here.
Are there any announcements?
I think several of us do.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. Imagining a New Democracy Summit, February 6th and 7th. The entire Charlottesville community is invited to two events that will take place at City Council chambers on the evening of February 6th and over the lunch hour on February 7th at the downtown library, with lunch included, to explore how we can create new spaces and ways for strengthening community visioning and collaboration. On February 6th, from 6 to 8:30, the Legislative Theater Workshop will take place at City Council chambers. Facilitated by artist Katie Rubin, Legislative Theater will share a series of plays created by local residents over the fall of 2019 about affordable housing, the school-to-prison pipeline, and the ways that community interacts with local government. These will serve as a starting point for the audience to brainstorm our alternative solutions to how these issues impact Charlottesville and how we can build policy based on local experiences and knowledge. On February 7th, they'll hold a Reflection and Action Symposium at the downtown library from 11 to 1 p.m. As the culminating event of the summit, this symposium will be a platform for the broader community to share important community-based work that is taking place, think deeper about how democracy, culture, and belonging fit together, and work together to think about how we may magnify each other's work. This symposium is being facilitated by Arlene Goldberg, international author and theorist on cultural democracy and social justice. The objective of the summit is to initiate a broader conversation about the role of creativity plays in developing our democracy and a future for Charlottesville. These events are free and open to the public. For more information, visit imaginingdemocracy.worldpress.com.
All right, I have a couple. So February 8th at the Boys and Girls Club at 1000 Cherry Avenue, Tristan Cabeza will be hosting a Come As You Are for where two or three are gathered in my name, there I am with them. Join us for an afternoon in the community filled with food, music, and exciting message. Let's get together and uplift one another. Bring children as well. This is a joint lunch for those of our housing challenged in the community and others in the community to sit at the table together and share food. Additionally, on February 8th, from 3 to 5 at the Jefferson School is the Greens Cook-Off competition of macaroni and cheese, greens, and pound cake. Suggested donation is $5, and highly recommend it from many years past. And then starting February 12th is the Road Forward's Know Your Government, which is a nonpartisan series of 6 public forums designed to inform and enlighten local citizens about the foundations of local government, how it works, and how it's working to increase equity and inclusiveness in the Charlottesville area. These forums will be on February 12th, February 26th, March 9th, March 25th, April 8th, and April 22nd. You can find out more about them at The Road Forward. If you just type that in. The first one on February 12th is Local Government Constitutional Foundations and Urban Policy with Richard Schrager, UVA law professor from the Miller Center, and Larry Davis, a former Albemarle County attorney.
And then one announcement also. On February 22nd, Saturday, February 22nd at 6 p.m., the Grace Tinsley Scholarship Bash will be held at Carver Recreation Center. This fundraising effort has raised, and we've distributed over $100,000 in scholarships to CHS graduates over the last decade or so. That is our main fundraising, our only fundraising event, and so we hope people will come 6 p.m. on Saturday, February 22nd at Carver. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Payne, any announcements?
No.
Okay. And I just want to provide an update. Got some really great news last week for Home to Hope. During the summer, there were 8 individuals trained. The city hired 4 of those individuals, and 2 were hired last week within the community, one at the Fountain Fund and one at the Oxford House. And so I just wanted to provide that update, and hopefully that you all are paying attention to their work. So we don't have any proclamations. All right, Ms. Thomas, could you read this consent agenda, please?
Consent agenda. A, minutes, December 16, 2019, regular meeting, January 6, 2020, special meeting. B, appropriation, Human Services Fund balance for PACHM, transportation costs, $20,000, second reading. C, appropriation, State Criminal Alien Assistance Program grant for 2019, $4,478, second reading. D, resolution, City Market Sublease, one reading. E, resolution, Afton Express Transit Service Grant Application, one reading. F, ordinance, amending Section 2-5 of Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Charlottesville, financial disclosure by certain officers and employees, second reading.
Yeah, I would move to remove item B from the consent agenda.
So should I make the motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Yes.
So I make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda as presented, removing item B. So items A, C, D, E, and F.
Second.
Is there a second? All right. Please vote. All right. That carries 5-0.
Do you
Gonna make
Okay.
a motion for B.
So
And just, Mr. Payne, you are reasserting the potential conflict of interest you asserted at the last meeting. That's why you're not voting, correct? Yes.
So I move that we approve item B, appropriation for the Human Services Fund balance for PACHM.
I'll second that one, too.
All right. Please vote. All right, that carries 4-0. And I just realized that I didn't ask if there were any public comments, even though we've already voted. So is there my apologies. Is there anyone who would like to speak on an item on the consent agenda? All right. And just a quick correction, I said Oxford House for one of the participants, but it was the Piedmont House. All right. Next, we have the city manager. Oh, sorry. Mr. Blair, there was an announcement that I forgot to bring up.
Yes, you
So,
could
maybe-
have the announcement now.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So we're going to have an announcement regarding an update with the coronavirus, and Dr. Bonds is going to present a quick update.
Thank you, Mayor Walker, other council members. So I'm delighted to be here today to update you on the coronavirus. The first thing I'm going to say is that the risk to any individual in our community right now is extraordinarily low. So we'll just start with that. Coronaviruses are the viruses that cause common cold symptoms. So we probably have all had some type of coronavirus at some point in our life. You spread them through coughing, sneezing, close personal contact, and usually what we see are symptoms starting 2 to 14 days. Some of you may remember previous outbreaks that were caused by other new coronaviruses that had previously been unknown in humans. SARS and MERS are two, for example, that caused fairly severe lung infections in individuals and had previous epidemics. That's just a picture of what a coronavirus looks like and how it gets its name. It has a crown that surrounds it. The coronavirus that we're talking about right now in the news is currently being called the 2019 novel coronavirus. It'll probably get a different name at some point in time, but that's how it's widely seen. So there's a lot of news media about the 2019 NCOV, and I do think that this is a very serious disease, but I do want to emphasize again that in our community, the risk right now is extraordinarily low. The current estimates are that there have been about 17,000 individuals who have had the disease. Most of these are in China, as we'll see in just a minute. There have been 362 reported deaths due to coronavirus, which gives it a case fatality rate, that's the CFR, of somewhere between 2 and 4%. To put that in perspective, the MERS and SARS coronaviruses that I mentioned previously, which were outbreaks that we saw in 2012 for MERS and 2002 for SARS, had about 2,500 and just over 8,000, respectively, with a much higher case fatality rate. So people are very worried because it's in the news, and of course one of the things you want to know is what's the likelihood of actually coming down with it if you're exposed to it. So in epidemiology what we use is R0, which is essentially how many people would get the disease from an individual who's infected with the disease. And you can see that MERS died out pretty quickly. In fact, less than one individual would get MERS if they were in contact with an individual infected. Seasonal influenza, just as a reference point, because we are in flu season right now, it's about 1 to 2 individuals would come down with the disease for every individual infected. We don't know the exact R0 for the 2019 novel coronavirus, but we think it's somewhere between 1.4 and 3, and that estimate will be refined as we know more about the transmission of the disease. SARS was a little more contagious with an R0 of 3, and measles, and this is why we get very concerned when there's any case of measles in our community, is somewhere in the order of 12 to 18 individuals will be infected by one individual of measles. Measles is highly contagious. So you can see the 2019 novel coronavirus is somewhere between influenza and much less than measles in regards to infectivity. So this outbreak is very fast moving, and I'm just going to say that all of the information I give tonight is likely going to change by next week. Certainly the case numbers will. We get updates on a regular basis because it's such a fast moving outbreak. So the first cluster was seen at the end of December in Wuhan, which is in Hubei province in China. It was isolated in China in the first week of January, and by January 13th, we saw exported cases outside of China, so individuals who'd been infected in China and then went back to their home country, as it were. We began screening at 3 U.S. airports on January 17th. We now have a good test that is currently only being performed at the CDC, although we expect that to be delivered to our state lab sometime in the next week or so we can do it more locally. And then the first U.S. case was seen in January 21st of 2020 in Washington State. In China, and actually more globally, we've seen gone from 44 cases in early January. You can see this was actually done last week where we had 6,000. Today we have 17,000 reported cases. We have cases reported here at the end of last week, 11 countries. We are now up to 23 countries. So it's really a very rapidly moving virus, which is one of the reasons that some of the measures I'll talk about in a minute have been instituted, because we are seeing such a rapid rise in the number of cases. We are seeing increasing numbers outside of China, and we're seeing it spread more globally. We are a global society now. So who should be tested for the 2019 novel corona? This is the 3 definitions that we are using at the health department to determine who falls under a person of interest or a person under investigation. So fever and symptoms of a lower respiratory tract infection, such as a cough or difficulty breathing, and you have been to Hubei province, which is where Wuhan is located, within 14 days. We think the incubation, our best guess for the incubation period is about 2 to 14 days. You can have fever or symptoms of a lower respiratory and close contact with an ill laboratory confirmed patient. We have confirmed a number of cases of human-to-human transmission. Initially, it was thought that it was probably animal-to-human transmission, but now we know that it can be passed human-to-human. And then the final is fever and symptoms of a lower respiratory illness that require hospitalization, so you have to be quite sick, and you have a history of travel to China within 14 days of symptom onset. This was just added at the end of last week because we're seeing such widespread activity within China. So previously it was very isolated to Wuhan and Hubei province, and now we're seeing cases all over China. So what about the risk to Virginians here? What should we worry about here? Well, as of today, there have been 11 cases in the United States. You can see the states there: Arizona, California, Illinois, Massachusetts, and Washington. 9 of those cases were individuals that had traveled to China and then came back and developed symptoms once they returned. 2 of them were close contacts of one of those other 9 cases. So we have confirmed human-to-human transmission here in the United States. It is likely that there will be more cases here in the U.S. and across the world, but we are putting measures to contain that. It is not spreading in the community. The only cases we have seen are those. They are really very focused on individuals that travel to China, and again, these are very close contacts, people who lived in the same household. So the risk to the general public at this time is low. I'm going to just say that again. The risk to people in the United States generally, and certainly here in Charlottesville, is very low. If you have been exposed to someone who has been diagnosed, obviously that puts you at a higher risk, but we have not had any cases here in Virginia, and we have not had anybody who met the PUI, persons under investigation definition, here in the Charlottesville area yet. I will say the situation is evolving, though, and that risk level may change. We just don't know at this point in time. So before I go through these take-home messages, I do want to give people an update of what's happening here in the United States. So many of you may have heard on the news, travel from mainland China to the U.S. has been suspended for foreign nationals. So we will no longer admit people into the United States who are foreign nationals who have been in China in the last 14 days. There are exceptions for immediate family members of U.S. citizens or immediate family members of permanent residents. So all air traffic from China is being directed to one of 11 airports. Dulles is one of those airports. At arrival, individuals are screened both for temperatures and for any symptoms. If they have traveled from Hubei province, they will be quarantined in a facility managed by the U.S. government for 14 days, where they'll be monitored for symptoms. If they develop any symptoms, they will be given immediate medical care as appropriate for their symptoms. If they are from some other port of China and they are asymptomatic, they will be allowed to continue on to their final destination. We will be notified of those individuals at the health department. They will be asked to self-isolate in their home or family member's home, and there will be temperature monitoring for 14 days. So, right now, the State Department has issued a level 4 travel advisory, which is to avoid all travel to China. The CDC has a level 3, which is to avoid all non-essential travel. We continue to do surveillance at our hospitals and with individuals who we know have been in China recently. There is a diagnostic test that is available. It is currently only available at the CDC, but they are asking for a special exemption to get that rolled out to all state health departments. So we should be able to do it soon locally. But so far, there's been no issues getting specimens to the CDC, and we do this on a regular basis for a variety of different diseases. There is ongoing research on what's the most appropriate way to treat individuals who are sick with the 2019 NCOV. There has been a start on a vaccine. It will take a while. It just takes a while to develop the vaccine and to do the appropriate testing to make sure it's both safe and effective. And we'll continue to provide information and guidance. So what are the take-home messages? So this is a rapidly evolving situation. I gave this same briefing to my staff last Friday, and the case count was 7,000, and now it's 17,000. So that's likely to continue to grow. It is likely that I will have augmented or different interim guidance as this continues to evolve. We just don't know how it will act here in the United States. The hope is by instituting quarantining, self-isolation, and temperature monitoring that we can stop it from spreading widely here. If people are interested to learn more about viruses and transmissions and risks, we will have the CDC website and the VDH website. And then I want to just point out to everyone that we are in the middle of flu season, and right now, way more people have had influenza here in the United States, and the fatality rate from influenza is higher than the 2019 NCOV. So really, if you want to be concerned about something, be concerned about the flu. And if you haven't gotten a flu shot, please do get one, because it's not too late. So I think we just need to put this in perspective. We have a virus that causes very serious problems, causes lots of hospitalization, and people die of it every single year. And we have a vaccine right now, and people need to really remember that we live with flu every year, and we're concerned about it, but we have an appropriate concern. And so I would just hope that people would have an appropriate concern for the 2019 NCOV. So really, if you want to do something, get your flu shot and wash your hands a lot. Those are the two big take-home messages. And so finally, here is the website, and you can certainly post this and link to it. The Virginia Department of Health has a webpage devoted to coronavirus. The CDC has a really nice webpage, and the World Health Organization also has one. Both the CDC does regular media updates that they post a transcript on, so every day there's new information that's posted there. WHO publishes what they call SITREP, situation updates, on their webpage, and it's usually by the end of the afternoon because of the time difference with Europe. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
All right, thank you.
Where
are
can
there
we
any
get
questions?
flu shots?
I believe we still have them at the health department. You can come to the health department and get a flu shot. You can come on Thursday, and we'd be happy to give you one. And if Thursday or Monday doesn't work for you, just let me know, and I will make sure that you can get your flu shot.
Are there any other questions?
Are most of the deaths due to secondary infection, or are they just due to primary?
From NCOV?
Yeah.
So we haven't had any deaths here in the United States, and so I haven't seen medical. The only published case report is about the first case that happened here in the U.S., and he was hospitalized. I think he actually was at home for part of that, and I think he's since been discharged. I haven't seen in English any reports come out of China about what it is. So, it seems to be impacting adults primarily, but it may be that we're not testing kids and they have a milder form. We just don't know that. I would imagine that just like influenza, it's people who are already somewhat compromised. So people who are older, people who have lots of other medical problems. But we don't know that for sure because we haven't really seen a lot of data come out yet. So.
And I know that there was 3 possible cases in Virginia. Two had been ruled out, and I was waiting on still hearing about the third.
So we've had 5 individuals that we've sent testing on,
Okay.
none in our region.
Right.
4 of the 5 have had negative tests. We're still awaiting the results of the last one.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. right. Next, we have the city manager response to community matters from the January 21st meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. There's only two items for tonight, and that's dealing with the lights as well as the flags in front of the police department. We're working to address those. We should have something going within the next few weeks. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Next, we have community matters. First up is Valerie Long. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Again, I'm Valerie Long. I'm an attorney with Williams Mullen. Welcome to the new members of council. This is my first meeting before some of you. I'm here tonight representing Avon Court LC, which is the owner of a large parcel of land in the downtown area in the SIA 310 Avon Street. Several of you were at the joint public hearing earlier last month when we spoke on this issue. With regard to the item on your agenda for later, we would ask that you consider not moving forward with this draft in its current version. We've provided a number of comments over the past few months. We've been involved in reviewing and participating in the community engagement process on this issue for years. Personally, I was involved with the SIA. I served on the Citizen Task Force Committee. So I'm deeply engaged and been very passionate and interested in this issue, as is our client. We don't think this is ready for many of the reasons I've stated earlier. If the goal of the SIA was to incentivize investment in this very strategic investment area, we contend that this draft does not further that goal for a variety of reasons. If one of the goals of the SIA was to support and provide more affordable housing, it was not the sole or even the primary purpose of that plan. It was to incentivize investment. But regardless, by reducing the by right building heights from 9 floors to 6 floors, that will not result in more affordable housing. It will result in less affordable housing. If you do decide to move forward, though, we would ask that you continue to ask that you consider redesignating 310 Avon for T6 designation instead of T5. Among other reasons, the dramatic change in elevation with this property in relationship to the future Belmont Bridge will be significant. And at only 6 floors at the very most, perhaps only 4 floors, the building will not appropriately relate to the bridge. And given all of the time and tremendous public investment that has been put forth with the Belmont Bridge, we think that that would be important to get that right. In addition, this property is located in a designated opportunity zone, so there's a lot of potential there, but this draft of the form-based code will significantly impair that. It is adjacent to a future courtyard that's part of the Belmont Bridge master plan design. There also will be open space located on the project as it is over an acre in size. The site needs room to be creative, and by reducing building heights from 9 to 6 floors, it makes that even more challenging. And again, if the goal is to encourage affordable housing, it does not achieve that goal. We appreciate your time on this, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions or elaborate further when you get to this item on your agenda. Thank you very much for consideration.
Lucas?
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Madam Mayor. My name is Lucas Kreiser. I've lived in Charlottesville my entire life, and I've just started attending UVA. And I'd like to talk today about the Civilian Review Board for the police. Having lived here my whole life, I've seen the Charlottesville Police Department fail our community many, many times, whether it be what happened on August 12th or the daily harassment of my black and brown friends. I've seen how they need accountability and transparency in a real way. The current incarnation of the board does not give us this. The original bylaws passed by the board must be passed. Access to the raw data that cannot be manipulated or adjusted by the police is essential. Access to all complaints from start to finish is imperative. Currently, the board would not have access to complaints made directly to the police department, which is unacceptable. There needs to be complete transparency with these all complaints. In addition, when police are found at fault, the board would not be able to access the data from those complaints either, which is clearly a failure. Genuine accountability is not going to be found in the current form of the board, and I urge all of you to pass the original bylaws that were worked on very hard for a year by the board. That is it. Thank you. I see my time.
Thank you. Kathleen Galvin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Kathy Galvin and a resident of Charlottesville City. If Charlottesville is to reduce carbon emissions by 45% by 2030, ensure 4,000 more units of deeply affordable housing by 2040, create healthy environments and foster development that respects the scale of the places we love, then the city must change its current car-centric, equity-blind, and one-size-fits-all zoning. You have a chance to do that tonight with the form-based code. Our land management system is broken. The special use permit SUP process in particular leads to costly delays. For instance, if the form-based code had been in place, 80 affordable dwelling units would have been allowed by right, not by SUP, and the Crossings 2 project might not have been postponed. Build upon the SIA plan's principles of inclusion, sense of place, non-displacement, and streets safe for all users by moving to complete and not kill the form-based code. I urge you to take a look at page 40 of the Planning Commission January 14 packet to see those principles and to please get clarity on what those principles are. The form-based code acts on these principles by requiring public streets designed for walking, cycling, and taking the bus with street trees and ample sidewalks, smaller blocks with no minimum lot sizes, no maximum density limits, and smaller setbacks, thereby increasing the buildable area of each lot. Transition zones that respect adjacent neighborhood scale and affordable units on site for households making 50% and 60% of the area median income in exchange for height, when affordable is now pegged to 80% AMI, and zoning now allows 9-story mixed-use buildings without conditions. Build upon the Commission's recommendations that address many of the public's concerns, such as removing Graves Street from the form-based code regulating plan, tightening the affordable housing requirements, and adding protections for the Hebrew Cemetery. As our real estate assessments climb and land capacity shrinks, we must intentionally grow our stock of affordable housing through public and private sector means. Why wait 2 years for a perfect plan when good solutions are staring us in the face? The form-based code before you tonight incorporates many of the RCLCO housing study recommendations that were endorsed by the Housing Advisory Committee in 2016, and it was co-written by the economist who provided us with the excellent housing needs assessment in 2018. If we can't implement the SIA plan adopted in 2014, how will we implement the hydraulic small area plan, the Star Hill Vision plan, and the Cherry Avenue plan? If we can't rezone 80 acres in just 1/4 of the SIA after over 50 community meetings across 8 years for $550,000, how can we hope to rezone a 6,400-acre city in 2 years for $926,000? Please, as Andrew Cuomo said, you can't be a progressive without making progress. Please motion to send the FBC, the form-based code, back to the Planning Commission and staff with your feedback and a clear directive to complete the code, not kill it. Thank you very much.
Cal Chattleton.
Mayor Walker, City Councilors, my name is Kyle Charlton. I live in Venable, and I'm also a PhD student at UVA finishing a dissertation on emotion, sound, and Charlottesville's response to the Summer of Hate. Over the past few years, I've been inspired by the important activist work that so many community members have been engaging in, including the public history that folks like Jelaine Schmidt, Andre Douglas, Jordy Yeager, Tanisha Hudson, John Edwin Mason, Claudrina Harold, and so many others have been sharing in town. Their research, their activism, their ability to energize and impact the community have made me realize that there's so much more that I can be doing. So beginning tonight and hopefully over the course of future city council meetings, I'd like to share with everyone the dissertation work that I have been doing. I hope to share with you all the incredible activism that I found around Charlottesville, the ways in which white supremacy feeds off of history, and the debates and conversations I've encountered amongst city residents. Tonight, I specifically want to focus on the relationship between racism and sound. In the days following August 11th and 12th, 2017, Unicorn Riot released hundreds of screenshots of an online chat server labeled Charlottesville 2.0, where white supremacists organized in the days leading up to Unite the Right. While looking through these online conversations, I noticed that most were drawn to songs and sounds that could be used in the service of white supremacy. It was important, for example, that everyone learn the lyrics to Dixie, the Welsh national anthem, and an English adaptation of the Nazi anthem, Raise the Flag. Organizers also wanted everyone to know how to do the Rebel Yell, a Confederate battle cry from the Civil War. The racist history of the Rebel Yell began during the First Battle of Bull Run, when Stonewall Jackson allegedly ordered his men to charge at Union soldiers, and while doing so, to yell like furies. The Rebel Yell would occur time and time again during the Civil War, and both Union and Confederate soldiers remarked on how terrifying and effective the Rebel Yell was on the battlefield. In those online conversations, organizers believed that the Rebel Yell could be similarly weaponized to intimidate and traumatize Charlottesville activists. And sure enough, multiple videos from August 11th show Unite the Right participants offering their own renditions of the Rebel Yell shortly before they brutally attacked a group of anti-racist activists at the University of Virginia. So why does this information matter? Because it is yet another example that dispels the pervasive myth that white supremacists invaded Charlottesville. Instead, we must recognize that they found a home here, that their rebel yells made perfect sense on the grounds of a university that championed eugenics and was built by enslaved laborers. They were drawn to our town, to our statues, and to our history. And in order for us to prevent this from happening again, and in order for us to address racism in all of its forms, we must understand all of the ways racism functions in our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Jackie Martin. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Go ahead and start. I'm Jackie Martin. I work at Centera Martha Jefferson Hospital, and I'm here with members of the MAP core group that include the Thomas Jefferson Health District, UVA Health, and we're here to present our community's most recent Community Health Needs Assessment, 2019 Map to Health. The 2019 Map to Health focuses on health equity across the 4 district-wide priorities, and those priorities are promoting healthy eating and active living, addressing mental health and substance use, reducing health disparities and increasing access to care, and fostering a healthy and connected community for all ages. The process involved lots of engagement, lots of partnerships, and lots of planning for collective action. Over 145 organizations, departments, communities, and coalitions were involved in the assessment. There were 10 MAP councils, work groups, and committees. The report includes 7 photo voice projects, all asset-based projects to gather community input on what the community feels is valuable. It also includes a community-led diabetes steering committee we tasked them, a committee of Black and brown people, to go out and tell us why people in our community are not accessing services, because there are services in our community for diabetes. And they came back with things like not being aware of services, not seeing anyone who looked like them when they went in to access them, cost and transportation, among other things. Some of the highlights of the MAP assessment include the community plan for action that you find on pages 37 through 57. 7 community coalition strategies, including initiatives in Charlottesville around things like food security and equity and safe, connected streets. 5 implementation grants were awarded from the core group members, including some to Charlottesville-based organizations and programs like Common Ground Healing Arts, their programming at Crescent Halls. Other highlights include the fact that the photos, the majority of the photos you see in the MAP assessment came from the Photo Voice projects. We did a project in Friendship Court, and some of the themes that came out there include youth as assets, and other things they valued being access to healthy food and safe spaces. There's lots of community data, including demographics and data on each of the 4 priority areas on pages 74 through 188. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank Mayor Walker for being the City Council representative on the 2019 MAP to Health, and welcome Vice Mayor McGill as Council's MAP representative going forward. So I'd like to very quickly tell you we plan a MAP celebration for the community on March the 25th at 5:30 at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. Formal invitations will come later. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I know we got an electronic copy a while, but I need to be able to take notes. I was looking forward to the book, and hopefully the schedule was like 8:30 in the morning, so there was a challenge with me making a lot of the meetings, but I hope everyone in the community takes time to review this. Because when we talk about some of the challenges we face in the community, structural racism, all the things that we sit here and talk about, a lot of times, the impact that has had on the health of the community long before MAP to Health started, these major initiatives. I remember one of the most startling facts from the last time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was like 11-year difference between in life expectancy from like North Downtown to the Red Street area. And that was just insane, and it's still, every time I think about it, so interested in what it says this time. And as we do this work in the future, how the stress of the time that we're in and how we are like ground zero for this fight and fighting it, the impact that will have on the health moving forward. So when we talk about the work and doing it, I think a lot of times we leave out the health, the importance, like that true health is wealth, and we overlook just the impact over time that racism has on health. And this is one thing that was highlighted in the last MAP to Health, and I'm sure will be highlighted here. So we appreciate your work, and yeah, I'm sure if we have questions, we can have you back after we review it. So thank you.
We of course have a budget meeting on the 25th of March.
Yeah. All right.
Just checking the gallery.
Elizabeth Stark.
Hi there. My name is Elizabeth Stark. I'm a city resident. I live in Woolen Mills on Fairway Avenue. I'm here to talk about the recently released disproportionate minority contact report and how I believe that that pertains to the PCRB ordinance passed by City Council in the fall. I hope that, I know that there isn't, I know that not everyone wants to revisit it, but I feel very strongly that the DMC outlines crucial steps that need to be taken, and that those steps are only addressed in the initial PRCB bylaws, and they are overlooked in the ordinance passed by City Council in the fall. Additionally, well, I'll get to this. So recommendation H in the DMC states that there is a need for transparency at every point in the criminal justice map. The PCRB ordinance passed does not allow for the PCRB to have access to raw data and to, my understanding is they have access to aggregate data. But if we want to understand how disproportionate policing works in our system, we need to be able to see everything happening from the phone call to the, trial. And without that, our PCRB can do nothing to help our community and to address the discrepancies highlighted in the DMC. Rec C, I also want to say that my understanding is that the DMC costs the city about $90,000, and my understanding is that to fully fund the PCRB with the auditor/analyst type position and the executive director position would be $180,000. So it's like we've already invested $90,000. Let's go the whole way and invest in our community to create the change that we know that we need. We also, recommendation C says there's a need to build trust in the community. And right now, the police are not obligated to be involved in the PCRB's community outreach. I think this is an oversight, and I think it's a missed opportunity both for the police and for the PCRB. Finally, the PCRB does not have access to all complaints, as someone else commented earlier, and most shocking to me is that they don't have access to police complaints where the police are found to be at fault and they can't look at what happened and why. And that's just the kind of transparency that the DMC says that we need to correct disproportionate policing in our community. As you review the DMC later tonight, I hope you'll see that the initial PCRB bylaws are the best way to address these discrepancies. They go a long way toward investigating and addressing the historic policing, disproportionate policing that's happened in Charlottesville. And I hope you'll consider fully funding and passing those initial bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Ivan, and I would butcher the last name. Okay, help me out.
I'm just trying to spell it.
Okay, thought you were gonna have.
Hello, council members, mayor. My name is Ivan Kovacic.
Okay.
It's a burden to have my last name. But I would like to talk about something that's been mentioned multiple times before, but specifically the recent disproportionate minority community report, and specifically the ordinance in relation to the Charlottesville Police Civilian Review Board. It is clear that the ordinance that were passed in the fall are insufficient to ensure police accountability to the members of this community specifically. Of particular concern are the numerous restrictions and clauses placed upon this PCRB board, essentially removing any real authority or power to ensure that police are not abusing their status. They've been mentioned before, so I won't take up your time with them. However, I realize that some of you may consider the PCRB as a hindrance to the work of the police department, and this is simply not true. The police are vested with immense power, the power to specifically legal use of violence against people, and it is only right that the community knows what happens and knows that the proper measures have been put in place to make sure that they don't happen again. The reason this is such a big problem is because when the police are the ones that cause you harm, who do you who do you call? Who do you complain to? And it is of utmost importance that complaints against the police are known and properly followed up on. This board is just a Band-Aid on all the issues we have with our police departments in this country. But I think that the PCRB board, a fully functioning PCRB board, in accordance with the original DMC recommendations, is at least the first step in preventing this country from becoming a police state. Thank you.
Thank you. And and we'll address this and have a much more, I guess, robust discussion during the presentation later. But as one of the individuals who voted on the CRB, one of the things that we attempted to make clear was that we wanted to get the board in place for the board to help with the hiring of the executive director, and for that board and the ED to come back and tell us what they needed to be fully functioning. There's also the ability for the board to change the bylaws, either the initial ones presented or to make other recommendations. And so there was nothing that was firm and put, like just chiseled in stone. That's what, and I don't think that that was the intention of it wasn't my intention, I'll just speak for myself. And so we're looking forward to what that process looks like. Peter Krebs. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Peter Krebs. I live at 1022 Tufton Avenue, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Piedmont Environmental Council. Before I talk about my main topic, I just want to underline how great that Map to Health report is. Nikaya said some pretty eloquent things, and actually she just touched on a few things. There's a lot there. Mm-hmm. It's important to emphasize that's a community health report. It is the community's report. And they gave copies to council, but I would recommend that anybody take a look at it. And the easiest way to find it, I would say, would just be to Google MAP with 2 P's, MAPP 2 Health Charlottesville, and you'll find it. Check it out. So now the main topic I wanted to talk about tonight is to share some good news, which is that thanks to Bama Works, Bike Seville is back for 2020. We're excited. Bike Seville is a series of free community, all-ability bike rides that emphasize safety, visibility, and camaraderie. The rides are free and appropriate for anyone who can stay on a bike for half an hour or so. We've had 14-year-olds, we've had seniors, we've had all kinds of people. They're a great way to learn about Charlottesville, to meet new people, and to learn how to be better advocates for safe walking and biking. The series kicks off in just a couple weeks, February 22nd, with a Mardi Gras bike ride that's starting at Community Bikes on Avon Street. We'll gather at 4 o'clock for bike checks and a safety talk. Then we'll ride for about an hour, starting at 5. We'll get back by dark, and then spend the rest of a couple of hours being social and having fun with refreshments from Potter's Craft Cider and other treats. These rides are casual and fun, and I look forward to seeing many of you there. For more information, please visit the website pecva.org/BikeSeville for more information. I also have flyers for anyone who is interested and able to help distribute them. Let the good times roll.
Thank you. Downey Smith.
Good evening, I'm Downing Smith. I live at 810 Locust Avenue. Friday morning I came out and found somebody sprayed white paint in my yard and put up white ribbons in my bushes. I know that white paint means proposed work or proposed excavation. And I was thinking, who came into my yard without my permission or even telling me and sprayed paint on my yard and is planning on doing an excavation? So I managed to get in touch with Public Utilities, and a very nice gentleman there said he didn't know anything about it, but that he'd get back to me. And he did on Monday. But over the weekend, many of my neighbors, they wondered what was going on too, and they were very concerned that their yards would get torn up. 100-year-old trees would get taken down. And everybody was getting worried because they didn't know what was going on. So everybody was preparing for the worst. Well, the gentleman called me back real early this morning and told me that it was the engineering department, and they were mapping out a route for a new water line. Well, you know, if somebody had told us that ahead of time, everybody could have relaxed. And the gentleman from Public Utilities told me that, you know, it's not going to go through my front yard. It's going to go down through the street. Yep, that made sense. I didn't really think the city was going to dig up 5 blocks of Locust Avenue and go through people's front yards and dig a big trench. Well, another person in the neighborhood, they called up the engineering department. And the engineering department said, oh yeah, you know, we're going to do an excavation right down through your yards. Lack of communication here. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people are concerned. It may seem like I'm jumping the gun coming here 3 days after this happened, but I didn't want to wait another 2 weeks and still not have the story. So I guess I'm asking for you to have the city manager or whoever the appropriate person is in the engineering department get back to our neighborhood and let us know what's going on. And that may depend on what we have to do to address the situation. But I really don't think y'all are going to dig up our front yards. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dr. Richardson is taking notes, and I know in the past you talked about making sure people are notified properly. So, all right. Emily Little.
Good evening, Mayor Walker, council members, new council members. My name is Emily Little, and I moved to Charlottesville from Albemarle in 2019 to lower my carbon footprint. Watch out if you do the Charlottesville Climate Collaborative Challenge, because you may realize you need to really change your life to change your carbon footprint. On July 19th, 2014, I gave birth to my daughter, Sarita. And right afterwards, I lost a lot of blood, and I almost died. Because I'm an emergency room nurse, I knew it was bad by how many people were in the room with me and the tone of voice that they were using with me. For a minute, well, it was longer than a minute, and it felt like it lasted a lifetime. I thought that I was not going to be able to watch my daughters grow up and that I wouldn't be able to keep them safe. That's how I feel with climate change now. And almost losing my life is what made me in tune to the fact that what we do as parents, one of our #1 jobs is to keep our children safe. I think climate change is the single greatest threat to their future and the future of all of our children in Charlottesville. You know when your child starts to fall and you catch them just in time, or your dog starts to pull the leash and you catch them just in time before they go into the road? That's the moment we're in with climate change. We are right in that moment that if we don't grab that dog right now, and if we don't grab that child right now, then it's going to be too late. So I wanted to thank all of you for signing the letter from the group We Are Still In at the last council meeting. It shows the state legislators that local communities need the state to make good decisions on climate action, and that their choices will help us do more in Charlottesville. I hope that as we move through 2020 and beyond, that you counselors and us individual citizens will look at every decision we make with a climate lens. every decision that we make in the next couple of years, they may not seem like they're related to climate action, but everything is related to climate action. The way we build buildings, the trees that we choose to cut down in this city, and I hope that the lens that we look at every decision in Charlottesville includes climate as a piece of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Liz Russell.
Thank you. I'm Liz Russell. I'm speaking in regards to the proposed form-based code rezoning. I am the president of Preservation Piedmont. We are a nonprofit organization dedicated to preservation, public awareness, and advocacy. Our architecture reflects the physical and social development of the city and enables the community to understand its historical identity. This identity encompasses the histories of those who lived in the community as enslaved or newly freed individuals, residents who migrated in the city to seek employment, generations of scholars who have come to UVA as faculty and students, other stories as well, but essentially people that helped shape this city. And if those words sound familiar, it's because I lifted those sentences from the Charlottesville Comprehensive Plan. Here's another section. In order to be a truly world-class city, Charlottesville must provide sufficient housing options to ensure safe, appealing, and affordable housing for all segments of its population. These two objectives, historic preservation and affordable housing, are sometimes pitted against each other, that they are somehow antithetical. That one cannot be achieved without the other being sacrificed. However, a new report by Place Economics lists 24 benefits of preservation, and these include environmental sustainability and responsibility, affordable housing, economic stability, neighborhood diversity, density at a human scale, not to mention preserving the uniqueness and livability of our neighborhoods. It sounds a lot like form-based code zoning, right? Form-based codes can be an appropriate tool for underdeveloped or redevelopment districts that lack character, but when overlaid on intact historic neighborhoods that have a sense of place, the result is at minimum complicated and at worst detrimental to these resources. Preservation Piedmont recommends that the zoning text and map be amended to eliminate unnecessary complications. Specifically, form-based code, if adopted, should only be applied to the areas within the SIA currently zoned downtown extended. This essentially excludes the areas west of Ridge and east of Avon, and that includes Grave Street. In addition, the two areas currently zoned downtown extended within the downtown ADC overlay should remain as currently zoned. If this is changed, then the ADC overlay regulations and Board of Architectural Review should not be superseded. Cemeteries within the SIA, Oakwood, Daughters of Zion, and Hebrew should be identified and protected. In conclusion, City Council should not overlook the affordable housing function that historic and other existing buildings already provide for families and individuals living in our Charlottesville neighborhoods. All members of our community deserve a choice in housing options, from low density to high density. We caution against the notion that height and density should serve as the only answer or as the answer to the affordable housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Gloria Beard.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm Gloria. I'm in the city. Everybody knows me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, I have several things to speak about today. My first one, I don't know why I'm bringing this up because we didn't get any snow much this year, but the snow removal. I called the office to find out if they had anybody in place this year for the seniors and the elderly, and I didn't get a call back. If I did, I didn't see it, and I just wanted to know because we had a little bit of snow, and I really panicked because I'm like, I can't get out there and shovel my snow anymore because of my back and knees, but I don't know. I know I talked to Rosa, too, one time from the school system. I hadn't heard anything. I don't know. I just wanted to make sure, and I called the neighborhood association person. They didn't have nothing to tell me, so thought I'd bring that up today. And then I'm concerned about the taxes going up. I was reading it somewhere that taxes may go up, and I know y'all don't meet again until March. Is that correct?
We actually meet on Thursday.
Oh, Thursday, wow. So I'm kind of concerned because there's a house on page, and I know you all have seen it because I took a picture and posted it. 449,000. At first I heard it was 400,000 in my neighborhood. What I'm concerned, because that could interfere with our taxes. I'm talking about the elderly. Most people, and I know y'all have something, you know, to the tax relief fund, but it depends on income, since I use it. But the thing about it, I worry about my older people and my children. That's just me. So I don't know if all these houses and these buildings coming up around our neighborhood, how is that going to interfere with our taxes? Look, I am retired, so it's hard. People don't want to hire me that much. They might give me a little something to do, but I can't make any extra money because my taxes last year, I think it was like $3,000 and some dollars. And right now I'm still paying mortgage, so that's all straight right now. But one of these days, if I live to see it, I won't have to pay mortgage again, but I'm have to pay those taxes. And if they go up every year, look, I can't afford to lose my house I worked hard for. And do you know when you get help getting your house fixed, there's a stipulation in there that your children may not be able to inherit. Did you know about that? Y'all know about that? It depends on the little small line. They have to qualify. And that would kill me because I worked hard for this house. It wasn't given to me. I'm paying my mortgage. So something to think about. What's going on with housing for the elderly here in this town. And then I came here a year ago and presented something about an arcade for the children. Now I'm hearing they built something for the older people and the teenagers over there on in Belmont? Carlton. Well, how about the babies? We gotta get something. I'm gonna leave this with the secretary or whatever, and let y'all look at this again. I mean, they did this in Ohio where my son lives, and they are not no bigger than Charlottesville. Matter of fact, Charlottesville may be bigger. We have to think about our children, because someday I'm gonna be gone. I want to think my grandkids have somewhere to play. Skateboarding is not for everybody, and swimming is only in the summer, unless you can afford to go to the indoor pools. Y'all know that, so I'm not going to talk much. Y'all give me one more minute. I want to know about how do the city council come up with the taxes for our homes? Does it really have something to do with all this building, you know, this contracts, you know, these contractors that coming in and building these tall buildings? Does that how they assessed our taxes for our homes?
I just want to say with the assessments, they have gone up, but as far as the tax rate, the city hasn't raised the tax rate in a few years. We're still at 95 cents.
Oh, yeah. And one more thing. Crossing the street on Main Street, and we know where the hotel is up there, where Habitat Building is. When you're trying to cross, far as being elderly, you know, it takes like almost 5 minutes for a pedestrian to get across there. And when I start going across there, it stops. So that means the hand comes back up. I'm concerned about that. They got to do better with that. A couple seconds is not enough time to get across that street, and cars are starting to turn. They'll stop if they see you. And when I saw the stoplight out here, and you know, for the pedestrian, it give them time to get across the street. But up there on Main Street, I don't want to get hit, you all.
I understand. Thank
you. And thank you for the program you started. I saw my niece on TV today. She's in that program, Home to Hope. It's a wonderful program because nobody ever cared before. And it gives people a second chance. Everybody needs that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Hillman. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to reiterate what the city manager said about, you know, the assessments keep going up, but that's something that we on city council don't set. That's done in the city assessor's office. But it's definitely the case that a lot of these large developments coming in raise land values, bring in more investment, and are part of the cycle of assessments rising, which even though we don't set it, equals people paying more money, like you said.
And I have a proposal for this budget cycle too, for council to consider to increase the CHAP program, the grant for low-income family members, which last year when we approved it was up to $55,000. So we'll take a look at that during the budget cycle again. Hi.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I spoke on January 14th at the Planning Commission meeting and communicated with several of you regarding the issue that I'm speaking to you about tonight. My name is Diane Hillman. I'm president of the Board of Directors of Congregation Beth Israel in Charlottesville. I'm also a city resident. I'm speaking about the Hebrew Cemetery and the zoning issues surrounding that cemetery. That cemetery was established and dates back to 1870. It's in active use with over 300 occupied plots and over 500 remain to be used by family members and new purchasers of plots. We hold about 10 burials per year. With the aging of the population, that could go up. The current environment at the Hebrew Cemetery is a very placid, spiritual, solemn, calm, and private place. The current zoning and the proposed rezoning method, as applied to that area, present a serious problem for the Hebrew Cemetery. Both methods potentially allow for the construction of up to 6-story buildings on all 3 sides of the cemetery, excepting the frontage on First Street. There is currently no regulation requiring setbacks of any kind or any kind of provision for step backs of heights of adjacent buildings. This would potentially produce essentially a box canyon in which a small, slightly over 1 acre plot of land would be surrounded on 3 sides by tall buildings. This would block sunlight from the cemetery most of the year and would create a cold, damp environment. It would create maintenance problems and difficulty maintaining the quality of the land and the gravestones. Siting residential and workspace in tall buildings immediately overlooking the cemetery would also be disrespectful, both for the people in the cemetery, the visitors that we have quite frequently and at burials, and it would be uncomfortable and I think unpleasant for residents and workers in the buildings which might eventually be constructed in that area. So in summary, I would just like to say that destroying the tranquil, respectful environment of this historic and long-standing cemetery would be wrong. As discussed at the Planning Commission meeting, we hope that you will consider alternatives that would provide these setbacks and step-back heights of buildings in order to allow for a respectful and appropriate space for current and future use of the Hebrew Cemetery. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a few more spots. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Theodore Johnson, a lifelong resident. I've been here for 70 years, and I'm very upset. I wasn't going to say anything until she said something about the cemetery. And this is concerning those who were here, who sold Oakwood Cemetery. I've never seen anybody who wants to live in a cemetery. And as a child, I used to go over to Oakwood because I grew up on Garrett Street. The man used to take care of Oakwood, lived on West Street. And I used to play in Oakwood. My grandmother owned a plot over there, many plots for all her children. I say something to Miss Gavin, I say something to West last year. You can't get where they had 3 books over there: colored, Negro, black. And down in our section, we had tombstones there. And it's just 2 boys in there, and I'm the oldest of the grandchildren, and I'm going to speak. The stones has been knocked down, water stained almost to your knees. You can't go to put no flowers over there. You need to do something about the water. I know the bodies are well gone, but the stones are gone. There are teachers who taught at Jefferson School. They are over there too, floating in water. And I had to say something, actually say something. because I'm the only one in my family that go to the cemetery that put flowers over there. And I have some over on up on the hill. I have some at the road. But down there where my family, the original, my mother's brothers, my mother's sisters, are down floating in that water. And I would like for the city, I want all y'all to know it, I want something to be done about it. And you don't, I know you have money, because you can find money for everything else. When you want to get rid of somebody, you can come up with some money. So you need to do something about the cemetery. Oakwood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emerald Young. I live in the county portion of Charlottesville, and I saw that you have your report on racial disparity on the agenda, and I wanted to repeat my remarks. Disparity is normal, and if there are more interactions with Black people and law enforcement, it's because Black people commit more crimes than other races. I want to repeat that. Black people commit more crimes than other races. And in addition, this highlighting of disparities, which is normal in nature, that's why twins are a phenomena, because you don't find identical very often occurring in nature. So this whole plan of, this is part of a plan, which is to create lawlessness. And it's a global plan as well as the national plan, and the steps of this structure are you highlight everything that can conceivably be construed as Black victimization. The media plays a key role in this. You demonize the police. You construct civilian review boards whose actions negate effective police enforcement. You have elected officials, as we have Mr. Jim Higley. He was given money by a Soros Foundation. And you have elected officials, mayors, judges, DAs, chief of police, who are funded specifically so they could erect a policy of civilian review boards. No, policies of criminal justice reform. Low bail, no bail, suspended sentences, and so you have these repeat violent offenders released back into the community multiple times. So I just want to say that this is a whole plan. It's a plan to destabilize society. Charlottesville, you can look at Chicago. That place is descending into hell with the DA, who's the chief of police. They said they have no confidence in her because she completely negated all of their police work. So those are my comments, to be aware that this is actually a plan to destabilize local government and safety.
I really wasn't going to speak. Good evening. I really wasn't going to speak, but I feel like we probably shouldn't end on that note. So I just wanted to add to the assessments that, and say this for people that's listening outside of council, that we need to pay attention to like the tech crunch coming into Charlottesville with the new tech companies, the ice skating rink, the new building coming there, Willow Tree expanding in Willow Mills, and the Dairy Central project, that these high salaries are going to bring people, these high-paying jobs are going to bring people here with high salaries, and they're going to continue to push people out of the city. And to answer Ms. Beard, this is the reason for a lot of the assessments increasing, is that we have a lot of professors coming to UVA taking jobs. We have a lot of, nurses, doctors, and other hospital staff coming here with decent paying jobs, and then they're moving into the city of Charlottesville, and then they're pushing people out. So a lot of people can't afford the city, so what do? You purchase outside of the city because you can't afford to live here, even if you're born and raised from here. You know, you can't afford to purchase somewhere, and you don't want to live where you've been your whole life. You feel your children deserve better. But I just want the people outside of council who aren't able to come because maybe they got kids, they don't have a babysitter or whatever, to know that we got to start paying attention to this tech crunch and these developers that are coming here, putting these buildings here. Like, a lot of us just are not in the know, and we need to get engaged in the conversation. We need to, you know, up our information and knowing what's happening around us so that we can come down here and speak up, because we're going to be like DC soon. It's $2,200 to rent in DC in an average neighborhood. Jobs are paying $15 an hour, and we wonder why there's a homeless issue in places like DC and Baltimore when the cost of living is just so expensive because of that tech push that's in DC. And Charlottesville is more like a hub for what's happening in DC. We're really close to it, and I don't think Charlottesville, Richmond, you know, Fredericksburg already got a little bit of the heat from it, but we're not paying attention to that stuff. It's trickling down to us. So I just wanted to keep people in the know and not end on the last comment. Thank you.
So that's the last comment. Yeah. There were 3. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Yeah, so, and Mr. Harris was here to speak on the DMC, but hopefully you can stick around and maybe speak on that in a bit. So we're gonna take a break for 10 minutes. And so we'll be back then. Thank you.